I wrote 30 poems in 30 days. Hi there. I've been doing this for a couple years now, but this time around I decided to document the process. You may have seen previous years on my YouTube channel that are mostly archived as of now, or this challenge floating around the interwebs in the previous decade under the name 30 for 30 or Escape Roll. I believe the challenge was originally created by the poet Savannah Brown. Annually, she would announce a theme followed by daily prompts with the end goal of writing one poem a day for the 30 days of April. I would usually make it even harder for myself and not really follow the prompts, as well as produce a video for each poem on each same day. Now, in lieu of completing the challenge this April, I've decided to sit down and share some of the things that I've learned in my previous 5 years of doing 30 for 30. I'm going to be sandwiching in some clips from last September through October, so let me know what you think of this new format. Hello, this is the new house. I have a ratchet haircut and welcome to 30 for 30. This will be my first year doing 30 for 30 since 2022. As some of you may recall, I would write 30 poems in 30 days, one poem a day. Within that same day, make a video for the poem that I wrote. And that just became sort of undoable. Jumping into the workforce right out of grad school, being in grad school while I was applying for grad school. So that's largely why I have taken a break in the last couple of years. However, even though it's September now, I felt very strongly that I just needed to pick it back up again this year. I've also decided that I'm going to be doing it a little bit differently this time around. The original rules of the challenge are to just write 30 poems, one poem a day for 30 days. I added the video element just so I could challenge myself, but also make more sense of what I was writing about, because I'm a words person, but I'm also very much a visual movement video person. And that worked for a really long time. I want to set myself up for as much success as possible this year. I'm going to be doing this more so in solitude. I'm not going to be uploading every day. I'm not going to be making a video every single day. I'm also going to allow myself to sort of edit as I go. I don't really know what that means yet. I don't usually edit my work. I just sort of make it and then leave it alone or archive it if I really dislike it after a couple years. And maybe by day like 27, I'll want to stitch what I have with something I wrote on day 5. The point of this is to take away as many of the boundaries I had set up for myself back in 2018, to allow myself to unlearn the very loud voice in my head that says if it's not gigantic, it's not worth it. Like, done is good, done is great. One of the first things that I reflected about is I don't know why I felt like I wasn't allowed to not share right away every day, even though I was still completing the challenge. I'm sure it's because it started out as a challenge from the internet, and so I felt like if I wasn't sharing, I wasn't participating correctly. When 30 for 30 was at its like virtual peak, that's what people would do. People would post their poems as they were creating them every day. But in utilizing my free will again, choosing to not share every day gave me the space to be more unfiltered with my thoughts, words, and formats, because it only had to make sense to me that day. What I realized is, unfortunately, dauntlessness can disappear with lived life, which means we have to really put an effort in finding or even creating that freedom for ourselves again. And in this case, I took away the public microscope and was only reading to one other person each day. I chose to read to Connor, who is a wonderful writer, but not typically writing as a poet himself. It was an additional set of eyes, it was a different perspective, but not an entire unknown sea of commentary. And because I wasn't simultaneously creating for two mediums, I was writing without the background thought of, okay, I have to translate this into video format later on. I was just writing poetry again. And a lot of the poems that came out of this previous year, I feel like wouldn't have been written otherwise. Okay. When we check in, I'm literally wearing the same outfit, which makes it look like I've only been sitting here and writing for a whole week and not changed, not showered, not gone anywhere. This is my chosen writing spot. Well, technically like here. I definitely enjoy writing on the ground more. Just, I don't know, makes me feel literally more grounded. No, I have not just been sitting here wearing the same outfit for a week. Other than these first 10 days, I've actually felt a lot of growth. I guess I put on this outfit today to sort of see how it feels to be a week into this and be wearing the same clothes and sitting in the same spot. Kind of like this is like the control of the experiment, if that makes sense. I definitely had a couple of slump days towards the end of the week, but I, tried to not be too hard on myself. I started reading poems from previous years, and there were definitely a lot of low effort days disguised away by the high effort videos that I made. Because there's no strict video component this year, I feel like there's been a higher amount of pressure for every single poem to be more stellar, because I don't have to like divide my attention. Maybe because it's been a week, I'll make a video. I don't know. We'll see. With this new, more freeing framework, I gained a deeper understanding of my pulse and style of writing. Pulse-wise, I realized that I'm not really capable of writing long poems every single day, whether it's because of just general writer fatigue or because of the topic of the poem that I want to write isn't calling for a longer prose spoken word like format. I learned what a tanka poem is yesterday, largely because I was trying to write a haiku and I messed up and didn't want to fix one of the lines, and so I searched 577. It's supposed to be 575, a haiku, and then I wrote a tanka instead with 5 lines and a 57577 syllable count. And honestly, it was really fun. Not just because I was writing in a new playground, but with these haikus and tankas, I was writing full poems, simultaneously setting up foundations for future longer ones. But in allowing myself to switch up the format that I write, I am listening to and taking care of my pulse as a writer, rather than pushing myself to get to that really long poem every single time. Even on days when I felt more ready to write a longer poem, I also found myself stitching together the shorter ones that I had written on previous days, as per the letting myself edit as I go rule. All of this continued to enforce my already existing belief that every single thing is a draft. A line here, a line there, and then many little lines create a big poem, and something that you thought was complete could be even greater on a different day. Hello from day 20? 21. Day 21. I was a little stuck this morning. Honestly, like really fatigued, largely because of the new cat. Zoe's right here. Angus is upstairs. We're still slowly introducing them, but something else that I like to do is put on music without fail. It always just gets me writing. I think I'm gonna keep doing that for the next couple of days. We're also finishing up the office, which means I can use my desk again, and hopefully that change of scenery will also help with the spark. Something else in combination with music is I have, random little pages here and there in my notes app. When I feel like I don't know how to express what I'm feeling, I like to borrow from my past self. So I search up like a phrase I remember jotting down a long time ago, and then I start with that. And so that's sort of what's been helping today. I think as I just become busier in life, this is just going to be harder to do. Very ambitious. 19-year-old me could not see this coming. So I still haven't made a single video, but the quality of the writing this time has made me excited. I'm just allowing myself to be okay with things. If I start writing at 4 p.m. some days, other days I finish a poem before noon, and sometimes I finish a poem at 11 at night. So wish me luck. Okay, I just finished today's poem, and honestly, I'm really proud of myself. I think I'm discovering that good things happen when you don't beat yourself up over and over and over again. And I should know this already, but I don't. It's genuinely one of my favorite things I've written in a really long time, and maybe it's because I was rereading it with, the dramatic song that I was listening to when I was writing it. Doesn't matter. I'm gonna try to hold on to this moment. I'm really excited for you to read it. Also, hair check-in. Looking more and more like a normal person every day. I experience this thing where my thoughts travel faster than my words are able to express. Putting on a song, preferably in alignment with the emotions that I'm feeling, or do not hold any words at all, help my thoughts get in line a bit more. There are people who can't write at all with music on or can only write with music. I found that I need to start with music and then slowly switch it off once I get in the groove. Stylistically, I definitely feel myself becoming more and more confident as a writer. My poetry is very prose-like, sort of as if I was talking to myself, with a heavy use of the senses, touch, sound, taste, in addition to sight. Like a lot of poets, I definitely started out rhyming, but now more and more I feel like my rhyming just comes out randomly in the middle of my poems. As I was able to slow down in this new format, I've come to realize what the random rhyming means. And I don't mean to say that rhyming in poetry is juvenile, but within my poetry, I use it sort of as a technique to showcase a more youthful or nostalgic, untainted voice within the characters that I'm building. Youthful memories, youthful characters, whenever I felt like they needed to be present. Okay, in editing this, I'm realizing that I didn't go into that much depth. I think I was just feeling a little bit bashful. But if content about my specific style of writing and, ways that I create as a bilingual, multicultural poet is something that you're interested in, let me know and I will be more specific. The more poetry I write, the more I know that I am a personal writer. And that is okay. One of my favorite notes I've ever gotten from a booth is there's a sincere vulnerability, personalness that's hard for people to tap into that is so important that you bring. Having someone kind enough to tell me that has made me braver in showing up as just that. However, being a personal writer still can be a lot. I started writing something pretty late last night. It's based on a line that I wrote a couple weeks ago about feeling like I used to be really ugly. Like I glowed up sometime towards the end of college. I started writing about that and I got dark really fast, and I'm afraid that all I can write about is sad stuff. Now that I'm fortunate enough to be in a more stable part of my life, there's more time to reflect on, the things that I've been through. I've never really written about going through stability or joy, but that also opens the gate to a lot of self-reflection that I think I just didn't have time for in the last decade. It's so much more personal, because I've already stripped away those external barriers to my happiness and just stability. Now I'm just left fighting myself. And I don't know how comfortable I am sharing that kind of content, but I've also noticed that that is what I write, in my opinion, the best about. It's just really personal. We'll see how much of that I actually share with you, how much of the actual content. Just because I write to process things doesn't mean I always want to process things. Maybe sometimes I don't want to write about it at all. I can be a personal writer and I can just not write about my personal things. I think perhaps there was a time where I thought that if I didn't, I wouldn't have anything interesting to say because that is the primary realm that I would write in. But, sitting down and choosing to write about my cat rather than transgenerational trauma doesn't mean I'm avoidant. Writers are multidimensional and are allowed to be private. I can also choose to release things, to write about things when I am not actively processing them. A wing of this that I've been thinking about lately is that this slight delay can sometimes be confusing for audiences of personal writers. Why are they releasing such heartbreaking, devastating content if they are healed and happy now? Is it fake? Is it underlying processing that's still not complete? No, they're just finally ready to talk about it. You can need to write to figure something out, but you can also need to be in a place where you are able to even write about it. And I guess what I'm learning is that there's no concrete timeline for processing. Even for someone like me who's been quite routine in the way that she writes, in moments where she chooses to write, I'm learning that I also need time and space as well. And when I choose to release things, it only has to make sense to me. And sometimes it doesn't even make sense to me. So my act of self-care today is going for a walk in PJs, getting some boba, and I think I'm gonna get one of those suspicious mango things. The weather's so nice, and I'm trying to be more appreciative of sunshine. Like, I don't really get seasonal depression, but I don't want to get close to it, you know? My other act of self-care today is trying a new recipe. It's like a coconut lime fish thing, and he's already done.
It's yummy.
The work of a writer often happens before the pen hits the paper. Because I've always written in real processing time, I thought prep was a myth. Prep is not a myth. Prep just looks different for everybody. This could be consuming material, progress in other projects, new conversations, life experiences, emotional pivots. Sometimes you're not ready to write about what you're feeling because you need all or most of these things in order to get there. Sometimes I'll even think that I don't need to write about something because I don't think I need to process it. And then I experience one or all of these things and realize, oh no, I definitely do need to write about that. This is also to say that your life doesn't just have to be writing just because you're writing. This time around, I definitely made an effort to walk around new neighborhoods, to cook new recipes. We even adopted our new cat Angus during this challenge. We adopted like a whole cat. Oh my god. I was also consuming a lot of new material, reading fiction and even third person point of view fiction, which I find a little bit difficult to consume. And I spent a lot of time in silence. In previous years, because it's a challenge, it can be quite all-consuming. I was writing a poem a day and then I had to immediately translate that into a video format, all in due time to get it posted online before the end of the day. Creating was all that I kind of did for a month. Even if I was preoccupied with other things, I would just kind of become consumed with this challenge, and making the 24-hour deadline felt like a race, which is why most of what I would create within 30 days was quite uniform, because I was just trying to make sure I made something that day. Allowing myself to immerse in new environments, new challenges with new media, and especially moments of pure silence to process all of this new information, I found a new balance in feeling stimulated and calm. Do not underestimate time alone in silence. It can often actually be the most useful thing for a writer. Something else I also want to touch on are writing slumps. It's very rainy and gloomy today. I went outside for a little bit and I only wrote 2 lines, but I wrote. And this is just how some days are gonna be like if you're trying to write 30 poems in 30 days. I guess what we're doing today is just pasting in this thing that I actually wrote late at night on a different day. There was a day that I wrote 2 poems. One during the day and one basically when I couldn't sleep at night. So I guess this is gonna be the poem for today, even though it's technically something I wrote on a different day. I'm gonna tinker with it and try to make it more of a poem. I went downstairs to get my emotional support jar of candy corn. Some people hate these, but they're good. Slumps are normal, whether you're doing a challenge or not, and hopefully we are already working on being kind to ourselves during those slumps. What I actually want to touch on is what to do when you find yourself not in a slump. In general, lines come to me at the most randomest times, but especially the most inconvenient times during 30 for 30. Oftentimes, I've chosen to not jot the line or two down because I trust myself to remember it, only to later confirm that I have a terrible short-term memory. Even after trying to repeat it to myself over and over and over again in the moment, when in retrospect, I could have just pulled out my phone and jot it down quickly. I guess I was scared that I would be taking away from the moment itself, but I'm realizing that jotting down a line or two is just my way of remembering it. So I've more so been allowing myself to just write when things come to me. Allowing myself to write anything, anywhere, as anyone, to accommodate whatever writer I feel like being that day. I've just come up with specific structures, physical notebooks for prolonged writing, the notes app for chicken scratches, setting myself up for maximum exploration. These were specific developments from this previous year's challenge, and I want to end this video with just some overall thoughts from my 5 years of completing 30 for 30. I don't have to share every poem that I write, whether it's right away or ever at all. Things can be just for you, including this challenge. I personally have even decided that I want to save some poems for some bigger projects coming up. Secondly is the more it resonates with you, the more it resonates with other people. When you're writing or making anything, you're probably sitting there thinking, who's going to care about this? Is anybody going to care about this? Well, guess what? You're someone. You can be someone's anyone. Why aren't you your anyone? And besides, I'm learning that some people are just committed to misunderstanding you, but you also have a real chance of finding your audience who thinks like you. And lastly, decide why you want to write 30 poems in 30 days. I started doing this challenge at the age of 18, in the midst of finals. No strategy, just wanted to see if I could do it. But I would advise to come with an understanding that this is for you to write every single day, not create a masterpiece every single day. Whenever I found myself really honing into just making something every day, I was able to prevent myself from losing motivation. And when I still lost motivation, I just accepted that I'll probably get 10 at the end of these 30 days each year, maybe, that are good. And then I started taking notes of when those poems would most likely come about, what they would be about, or what format they took, and hence this new framework that I came up with for myself. I'm thinking maybe next year I'll take away like one variable, go back to making a video every day again, but sticking to not sharing right away and seeing what comes out of that combination. Whenever I feel like it next, I'll go back to no conditions, just writing to see if I can still do it for 30 days in a row. And then whenever I feel like it, I'll just skip a year. But this is what could happen if you choose to write 30 poems in 30 days. I hope you found some of my experience and reflection helpful. Try this challenge out for yourself. Share whenever you're ready. I have a whole playlist on my channel of my favorite ones from throughout the years. And maybe I'll see you later for this year's 30 for 30. Talk to you soon.